Good evening and welcome to the Planning Commission's regular meeting for June 26, 2023. This time we'll move to item 2 on the agenda, which is the roll call. Commissioner Rasmussen.
Commissioner Britton.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Chair Frazier.
Here.
Commissioner Knable.
Here.
Commissioner Rasmussen here. Commissioner Stevens.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Item 3 on tonight's agenda is approval of the agenda. Unless there is a motion to amend or add, I'd look for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Rasmussen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Fisher. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. Item 4 on tonight's agenda is open forum. This is a chance for anyone who's in the audience here tonight to speak on something that is not otherwise on the agenda. So if there's something that's not on the agenda you'd like to address the commission about, you can step forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and have the floor for a couple minutes. So at this time, I'll open forum. Is there anyone wishing to speak on something that is not on the agenda tonight? Seeing no takers, I'll close open forum. Item 5 is Chair's explanation of the hearing process. The Planning Commission is a volunteer advisory group to the City Council. One of the Commission's functions is to hold public hearings and make recommendations on land use and zoning matters. The purpose of these public hearings is to provide an opportunity for each applicant and citizens to present information, ask questions, and express opinions. Since these proceedings are televised and recorded for the public record, anyone wishing to speak must step up to the podium and give their name and address before addressing the commission. Staff reports are prepared and provided to the applicant and Planning Commission in advance of the meeting. The first step in the hearing will be for staff to present a summary of the report. The applicant will then have the opportunity to briefly explain the proposal and provide additional information or comments. Anyone wanting to speak in favor or against the proposal will then be heard. Upon completion of the testimony, the hearing will be closed to public comment. The Planning Commission will then discuss and act on the matter. 2 complete agenda packets are available for viewing on the back table. Please do not remove those items. The City Council will act on these matters at their meeting on Wednesday, July 19th, 2023, which starts at 7 p.m. With that, we will move on to item 6, public hearings and applications. 6.1 is shed setback variance, case V2023-013, with Emily Schmitz presenting.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. As you indicated, the next item before you is an application for a variance. The property is 6761 93rd Bay. It is in the Summers Landing development. The new home was constructed back in 2020. And an application was received for the shed, in 2022, April of 2022. So with that building permit application comes a site plan that we do require the applicant to submit as well, indicating where on the site they are going to locate an accessory structure. In this instance, as you can see before you, the applicant did indicate 6 feet from the south or side property line and 10 feet from the rear property line. Those are the required setbacks per the zoning code. I want to make note that the city does not have a surveyor on staff. So as a part of these processes, we do rely on the property owner to indicate or identify for us or on their site plans where those property lines are. And then of course, that's how we do review, because of course we don't have the professional staff to conduct those surveys on site. That permit was issued, and then a final inspection by our building folks was completed in August of 2022. At that time, of course, our inspector does verify those setbacks as well, measuring from the fence that was on site to the shed, again, at the time indicated the 6 feet from the side property line and 10 from the rear. excuse me, just recently in 2023, the neighboring property owner did have an official survey conducted, which indicated that their fence was in fact constructed approximately 6 or so inches into their property, which is a standard practice that we certainly see throughout the community. So when the neighbor measured to install the fence, or the shed, excuse me, verifying or measuring for that setback, they measured, of course, from the fence, which is again a standard practice that a lot of we see in the community. However, as you can see before you, and I'll note, of course, the property lines run just a bit at an angle, so it's important to note that it's just a portion of this shed that does encroach into that 6-foot setback. So this 6'3" is measured from this front corner, and as you can see here, this 66 inches, which is encroaching that 6 inches into that setback, is that rear corner. So we did send an inspector out just to give that measurement verification from a city's perspective, and these are the images that we received back, identifying again a portion of that shed is within that 6-inch setback. So with that being said, after reviewing the findings of fact that you do see in your packet, staff is comfortable recommending approval of what would verify or call an after the fact variance, given the shed is constructed, but to be sure that everything is in compliance from a city's perspective, the variance is requested. So I will stand for any questions. I believe the property owner or the applicant is in the audience as well if you have specific questions for them.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff?
I have a question.
Commissioner Fisher.
Okay, when I was reading this and listening to you now, I'm confused. So the fence belongs to the neighbor or to the applicant?
To the neighbor.
Okay, so the neighbor constructed the fence on the applicant's property?
Nope, onto their property,
So it's,
Commissioner Fisher.
the fence is within the neighbor's property, but it's
Correct.
not right on the line, it's in the neighbor's property
Correct,
farther.
correct.
So, okay, I just wanted to make sure I knew whose fence was where. Thank you.
Any further questions for staff? Commissioner Rasmussen.
The shed is clear from any utility easements or no drainage concerns that we're aware of, or easements.
Correct. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Rasmussen, the shed does not encroach in any of the city's drainage and utility easements, nor does it impact any infrastructure that might be within those.
Commissioner Stevens.
I would assume that this is common. Has this happened in the past, and what is city, what has happened? Just issue the variance, or, I guess, has this happened previously?
Sure, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Stevens, I'm certain in the past, in my 4 years here at the city, I've not navigated one. However, I am certain there have been instances in the past. Of course, things happen out there that staff isn't aware of, but when they are brought to our attention, we do navigate as appropriately as we can.
Me again.
Commissioner Fisher.
So during the permitting process, and so it sounds like somebody from the city granted the permit and then went out and inspected the structure itself. Does the staff not check on the lines and where it goes? I understand we don't have someone on staff to do the survey, but during the application and the inspection process, I feel like that could have been discovered at some point.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Fisher, so we rely on the property owner or the applicant to identify for us where the property line is, because we don't have a surveyor who can verify that. I can't go out there and verify the property pins and verify a property line. So that's why we go through this process, putting the ownership on that property owner to verify where those property lines are.
Okay.
Any further questions for staff? All right, thank you. At this time, if the applicant would like to add anything or make any comments, they're free to step to the podium and state their name and address. Okay, seeing none. Before I open public comment, I will note we did get a letter, commission did get a letter. It is signed anonymous neighbor. The commission has received that letter. However, I'll just note for myself, the instructions I read at the beginning of the meeting are that every person has to give their name and address for the public record in order for this to be accurate and so that we know who is speaking and providing information. Obviously, as I said, the commission's received that letter, but I would let all commissioners know they can take that letter for what they believe it's worth based on the fact that it's not been signed. At this time, I will open public comment on this application. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the application can step to the podium, state their name and address. One at a time.
Good evening. My name is Christy McMahon. I'm the owner of the property with the white fence.
What's your address? I'm sorry.
6763 93rd Bay South.
Thank you.
We actually went ahead and got a survey done. And with the overhang of the shed, it's actually 20 inches too close to our property line. The side closest to Mississippi Dunes Boulevard. Without the overhang, it would be 8 inches too close to the property line. As a homeowner, you have to do your due diligence, you have to do a survey, and they measured off of our fence line. So they didn't do their job right. So it's too close, 20 inches. 20 inches is a lot, considering off of the overhang. If you don't consider the overhang, it's still 8 inches. That's still quite a bit. You know, an inch or two, but 8 inches, that's quite a bit. In addition to that, as a homeowner, ignorance is no excuse for the law. So we have a shed in our backyard as well. We did our due diligence. We have a 10-foot setback. We had ours 11 feet in. We would love to have it 5 feet in, but we weren't able to. We had to do it 10 feet. So additionally, our neighbor across the street from us, which is, I believe, 6781, they actually had a shed in their backyard that had to be moved. They had a concrete slab poured and a structure was beginning to be built, and somebody came out, the neighbor complained, somebody came out, and they had to cut the concrete and move their shed. So I don't see why this wouldn't be any different than that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everything I need to say.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? All right, at this time, I'll close public comment. Any discussion, further questions from commission? Commissioner Britton?
This is a question for staff. The overhang setback is different from, thank you. The overhang setback is different from the eave, is that correct?
Typically, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Britton, typically you measure to the sidewall.
But I thought that the eave was like a 2-foot thing.
Typically,
not
there's a,
6 foot.
the setback isn't outlined specifically, however, we allow for a 2-foot overhang on a structure, typically.
So the overhang doesn't count towards the ordinance measurement for the setback?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So, let me just see if I have that right then. So then there has to be a 6-foot setback from the property line. We allow separately in the code for a roof to overhang by 2 feet. So theoretically, the roof could be 4 feet from the property line, based on those two numbers that are separate in the code, not talking about setback.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, generally speaking.
Okay. Any further questions for staff? Any further discussion from commission?
I'll say something.
Commissioner Fisher?
As I was reading this over the weekend, I was thinking about why we grant variances, and typically it's because the circumstances are, out of the owner's control. As I read this, I was feeling like, well, maybe I'm missing something, but I feel like the the people who built the shed didn't measure correctly. And to me, that's not something that's out of their control. And so I guess I am not in support of granting the variance, because if we granted this one, we would be setting a precedent. And I've watched other variances be denied in the past over, homeowners making their own, kind of making their own bed, right? Like making improvements or doing something that causes the variance to be necessary when it doesn't need to be necessary. So that's my feeling on it.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens.
I have a question for staff. So when somebody submits a building permit application, what does the city staff do to communicate that it's on the homeowners to clarify that property line? Is it kind of just in the paperwork so it's easily missed, or is it verbally communicated, like you understand you're taking on this ownership because we don't do that?
Yep. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Stevens, that's a part of why we require the site plan to be provided. So that site plan is included with that building permit and runs with the property. So as you, the property owner, are identifying where you're going to construct your structure, you are identifying to us that you understand where your property lines are, and you will construct that shed according to that proposed setback.
So like the site plan we were looking at, was that just, I mean, it certainly didn't like look like a survey, so did city staff like say, hey, this is a good picture, but we need to verify property lines? I mean, was that,
So we don't require a survey to be conducted. However, we do indicate to applicants that they are responsible to understand where their property lines are in order to measure from those. We typically use a lot of GIS mapping from Washington County, which of course can be off a bit here or there. However, we do typically have situations where property lines are outlined in a fence, and folks are certainly utilizing those over the years. So it's not uncommon that folks are using those landmarks.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Britton.
Can staff provide a little bit of insight into the intent of the setbacks for the side and the rear yard as to what they're attempting to prevent or standardize on?
Sure. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the setbacks allow for a bit of a buffer, right? Two different reasons. A lot of times it is that D&U avoiding any structures being placed within those. Now, not all properties have those easements on their property lines. However, it's a standard setback. Then, of course, the second is creating that buffer for structures, right? So we're hoping to avoid structures that are crossing property lines, and it helps keep that distance between property owners and properties.
Is it also to make sure the drainage, from the roof and things along those lines are we're taking our best chance at making sure things are going to work out right?
That's correct, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Britton.
Okay.
Commissioner Britton.
So, a comment that I'd like to make is that, the city went out and measured to the fence. It sounds like, correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, correct, as a part of the building permit.
And so they were assuming an assumption, but it potentially was an assumption that it was 6 feet. The homeowner did their due diligence didn't do their due diligence, but attempted to, it appears, to measure from the fence what they believed was the property line, which was incorrect, but we're all human. On a portion of the shed, having it 6 inches closer, to me, it doesn't appear, especially with the roof line facing 90 degrees to the fenced area, none of the water runoff is going to head in that direction. So being 6 inches closer shouldn't really cause it. I don't really see noise or light pollution being, there's no lights on this in the back that could cause a negative impact to the property. So letter of the law, you could look at it that way, but there's also the intent of the ordinance is what are we trying to protect? We don't want to be too close. We don't want that water running off from the shed to run right off over the fence into the neighbor's yard. So while errors were made, in my opinion, that the intent was not there to put it too close, but to follow the rules by measuring to the fence and making an assumption. So I don't see this as being, generating a significant hardship based on what the ordinance is. And, the 6 inches over a 6-foot period, distance doesn't appear to be enough of a violation, especially it's not even the whole shed, to cause, it to be forcibly moved, in my opinion. So just to.
Since you're looking at me while you're
Nope,
saying
nope,
it.
I'm just, I'm not directly looking at you, but.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Knable.
I don't know if this is a question for staff or the applicant, but did the applicant construct a shed or have a contractor come out and do it?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, to clarify, they had a contractor construct the shed.
And I think that was in the app, because we got the application, the building permit application, there is a contractor listed on that, so.
So did the contractor measure to pour the cement slab? Where, might be a better question for an applicant or.
Right. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I could say generally speaking, typically property owners will work with their contractors as property owners are indicating, where their property lines are and navigating that process with the contractor.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fisher.
Okay. I agree with what Ken is saying. However, my problem with it is the overall setting the precedent of allowing, I don't think that there was any ill will here. However, when we start saying, okay, yes, you did that, but we'll let you slide, well, then the next person that comes through is gonna say, well, I wanted to build my shed here, and I know it's too close, but I'll just go get a variance later. To me, that's the part about this, and it's 6 inches, and that really, it seems silly. Like, it really seems silly, but it's the precedent that we're setting. To me, it's not about the shed, it's about following the rules that everyone else is required to follow. And so that's why I'm not in support of the variance, because it's the precedent. It's not the 6 inches, it's the precedent. So, thank you.
Any further comments from commission? I guess I'll add my 2 cents. I see where both Commissioner Britton and Commissioner Fisher are coming from. On the one hand, we have the variance factors that say that the landowner can't create the problem that they now come to the city and ask for forgiveness for. The other thing is the practical difficulty can't be economic solely in nature, and I think truly the issue is if we deny the variance, they're gonna have to tear down the shed and they're gonna have to move it, and that's just gonna be the cost of money. But that's kind of the practical difficulty that's baked in. On the other hand, I believe this truly is a de minimis violation if it is one. 6 inches, as we're talking about, is extremely small incursion into the setback, especially when we consider other applications that we get where they're looking at, especially in commercial or industrial applications where we get 20-foot incursions into setbacks. I believe one of the ones we have later on is asking for an incursion towards the street to have a bigger parking lot. And so this is something that the city does all the time is, yes, we have setbacks, but we move the setbacks if there's a good reason to. So where I come down on is kind of split on that. What I can tell you is this: both of you are here tonight, both of you live next to each other, and you're gonna have to get along, okay? You are. I'm telling you, it's a fact, okay? That is the one fact that is gonna be here today. You live next to each other, you both own the property, you gotta get along, okay? And you know what? You can't talk from there, all right? You passed on your chance to talk. It's my time to talk now. I'm telling you this as advice, and from the city's perspective, it'll make everybody's lives better if you get along, okay? Anyone else? Commissioner Rasmussen.
I guess I'll just mention, I think it's a kind of a silly mistake, a little bit foolish of whoever built this shed. If I had a 6-foot setback and I'm gonna measure off of a swag line, a property fence, I'd probably aim for 7 foot, make sure I'm on the safe side. But, we're talking very minimal, 6 inches or less. I don't see any great problems, drainage, sight lines. I'd be in favor of this, to approve this as staff has it.
Okay. Any further discussion?
2 cents.
Commissioner Stevens?
I will just say that I think that it's very difficult if I were in either one of the property owner's shoes, and I'm sure that everybody, I guess I can't speak for everybody, but I think that I can agree with you with the rules are the rules, and it's really hard to set the precedence for the next one. And I probably would be frustrated if I was the adjoining neighbor. But at the same time, if I was the one that made the mistake and had to do all that work for 6 inches, that's also very painful. So I just want to say that I think I see both sides, and it's, challenging. That's all.
All right. Any further discussion? Otherwise, at this time, I'd look for a motion. Commissioner Rasmussen.
Motion to approve the setback variance.
Okay, I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Rasmussen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Knable. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no.
No.
All right, I have 5 voting aye, and I have Commissioner Fisher voting no. 5-1. All right, moving on. 6.2, Hohensteins Distribution Center, case SP 2023-010, with Emily Schmitz presenting.
All right, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, we're in business again here. Applicant this evening is Hohenstein Development. This site very well could look a little bit familiar to you, as I know we've seen project or proposed over the last year or so. However, the one before you this evening is a little bit different, but a little bit of history on the site. The corner of 95th and Jamaica Avenue. You might remember the TGP 14 project that the city underwent, which was replatting, adding some additional land to the TGP 14 pond, and expanding that pond area, taking some of the dirt off of future developable site at that time in 2022. So the applicant is here this evening with a site plan. Hohenstein Development currently has their headquarters in Woodbury. They've been a local, God, I'm gonna get this a little bit wrong. Hopefully they'll correct me when they're up here. But imported craft and domestic beverage distributor. They've been in the area, I believe, 70 years, so been around a long time. So they're looking to construct a building expansion for distribution, warehouse, and some office space, as well as you can see before you. So they're constructing the building or proposing to help a little bit of flow on the site. So as you can see, 3 access points onto 95th Street. You'll have 2 full access points, one on the west and one on the east. And this one in the middle is just a right out. So no access to the site from that particular location. And the reason being is this area in the middle of the building is actually, you're able to drive through it. So they're trucks, and when I say trucks, they are box trucks. This isn't semi-traffic, this is smaller. Box trucks are able to enter into the building, that's where they're loaded, and then they exit the building, and they're able to just take this right out, right onto 95th Street. So it helps the flow of the site. One additional item to note as a part of the flow on the site, on the west side of this building is an area where they do store their trucks. So they're not planning to store these trucks outside of the building, where they're visible, so a lot of that will be that interior storage. The proposed building and the parking lot All do meet the minimum setback requirements as well as the building coverage, which is limited as it is supported by the TGB 14 pond. So 85% is the total. Even with, as you can see, this future expansion area, this site would not exceed that 85%. And then my last bullet here, future expansion. Of course, the applicant wants to be sure that they have room to grow. They do, however, this would be a site plan application that you would see before you again at that time. The applicant is proposing to meet all of the minimum required landscaping on the site. It's important to note that we are evaluating that landscaping based on their phase one. So that calculation comes from square footage of a site. And so we're taking that phase one, calculating the landscaping. As they come in with a future phase, we would calculate using that site square footage at that time, just to be clear. And then the mitigation came as a part of, again, the city's project expanding that pond area and creating a developable site. So that mitigation or that tree mitigation payment that's required will be required as a part of development of this project for that applicant. As you can see, the applicant is proposing to use some Class 1 materials, a large amount. Again, those Class A precast panels are a permitted class for that 65% in our industrial areas per our new code. As you can see, the applicant is also looking to do a variation of colors and textures along those long spans of building, which is always appreciated. And then the most important thing to note is the applicant really placed a lot of focus on that corner at 95th and Jamaica. It is set back a bit. However, they really wanted to be sure, understanding that that was quite the visual coming into our business park. So they put some really good effort to make sure, so that's their office space, a lot of glazing and some different articulations on the corner of that building. So it's important to note that they really did put a lot of effort into making sure that that was implemented. So with that, I will leave the recommendation before you. I know the applicant is here with their team as well, but staff, of course, is always available for questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff? Thank you. This time, if the applicant would like to step forward and add any additional comments? I'm seeing head shakes, so we'll move on. At this time, I'll open public comment on this application. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the application can step to the podium, state their name and address for the record. Seeing none, I'll close public comment on this application. Any questions or discussion from commission?
Yeah, I guess I have a question.
Commissioner Knable.
So box trucks, will they be delivering the product there, or will there be semi-access to unload, to distribute into the box trucks? Like, how are you getting product to this distribution center?
I'll have you come up and come to the podium. We can't, for the TV system, you gotta have you at the mic. Please state your name and address, please.
My name's Carl Hohenstein, and I live in Stillwater. Do you want that address or
You can have your work address if you want to put that on.
2330 Ventura Drive, Woodbury?
Thank you.
Yep. So to answer the commissioner's question, yes, we get a lot of over-the-road semis. That fills our warehouse up. And we use traditional, like Pepsi Cokes, we call them 16 bays, to deliver to retail, both bars and liquor stores.
So are we planned for parking of those semis on here? Will they be parked there, or they leave as soon as they deliver?
The over-the-road semis,
Yeah.
they come and go. They're just, as soon as we unload them, they're gone.
Which exit would they be using the most to get in and out?
The west, by the pond.
Okay.
For incoming, and then that right turn only for exiting.
Over-the-road semis would probably both take the western access to 95th.
Thank you.
Any further questions while we have
I have a question.
Commissioner Fisher?
Are you moving your Woodbury location to this one, or are you expanding and having two
No,
separate?
we're moving the entire operation down here.
Okay. And do you have plans, do you have kind of a idea of when you might expand? Because I see we're kind of earmarking an expansion spot. I mean, do you have kind of projections on when you would be?
No, right now I'm doubling the size of my current operation, but I don't want to move again, so for a while.
You are a very smart man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions for applicant or staff, or further comments? You can have a seat. Thank you very much. If there's no further comments by the commission, I'd look for a motion.
Motion to approve, subject to the stipulations in the staff report.
Okay, I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Britton. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Fisher. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. Item 6.3 is Chase Bank. Case numbers SP 2023-011, CUP 2023-011, with Mike Brosla presenting.
All right, excuse me. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I got a little bit of a voice, so we're gonna get through this. JP Morgan Chase Bank has submitted an application for a site plan review and a conditional use permit for a bank. The proposed bank is located within the existing Kohl's parking lot, to the east of the existing Culvers, and to the west of the existing US Bank, and to the north of 80th Street, as shown on the screen here. A little background, in 2002, Kohl's was approved as an 88,000 square foot building. Had an addition approved as well at that time for 20,000 square feet, which would be located on the east side of the building. It's important to note though, as you look at the image on the screen in 2006, there's over 500 parking stalls supporting this use. So you can see then in 2007, they realized they didn't need that much parking. You saw the first subdivision take place where Culvers was approved at 3,954 square feet. With the drive-through too. Still, there's 470 parking stalls on site. So today in front of you is another proposal, not subdivision, it's actually a lease. The applicant's proposing a lease 1.3 acres from Kohl's. Kohl's will still own the ground. This is a ground lease. Chase Bank will be constructing a 3,319 square foot building with a drive-through ATM. Chase will own the building, but not the grounds. They will maintain the area. Chase will maintain the area to Kohl's standards. If Chase doesn't maintain it, Kohl's will. And we'll have an agreement as a condition of approval requiring that be recorded. And so we'll have record of that. Access will be provided via an internal roadway, as you're all aware. That's there currently off of Hardwood. That provides access to Kohl's, Culvers, and US Bank. It is worth noting that our engineering department did do a traffic study on the road to see if a traffic signal is warranted at this intersection here due to all the development going on, proposed, and currently going on in the area. However, warrants are not triggered by this development of this bank to put a traffic signal at that location. Hours of operation, your typical bank hours, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. On Saturday from 9 to 2 p.m. There'll be a maximum of 8 employees on staff at max workload, max shift size, I should say. They're anticipating about 20 to 30 trips per day to the inside teller, about 25 trips per day to the ATM, which was a total of about 55 trips per day. So it's a low impact use. Plan considerations, the subject site is zoned mixed use. Banks are permitted uses. However, a conditional use permit is required for banks with a drive-through. The applicant is proposing a drive-through shown on orange on the screen. Has stacking for 6 vehicles shown on the screen. Which is the minimum requirement. So they fulfill that need. Parking code requires 13 stalls or 1 per 250 square feet. So they only need 13. However, the site will have 52 of them. We are requiring a cross parking agreement for all the users, including Culvers and Kohl's. Well, actually not Kohl's because they own the site, but Culvers for sure. So Culvers will be doing a cross parking agreement. The building does meet all setback requirements and building height. It's same elevation as Culver's, so it's not much taller. Site lighting meets ordinance as well. A couple things on the site plans we walk through here. We have the drive-through. This is a landscape island in here. We'll talk about more in a minute. Trash enclosure is located there in red in the screen. Also, they are proposing a trail or sidewalk connection to the existing 6-foot trail along 80th Street. Architecture, commercial buildings required to have 65% Class 1 materials, which means the use of brick, stone, or glass. The applicant's proposing to use 89.2% Class 1 materials on this building. This building looked very similar to, this is like the prototype we're seeing rolling out, very similar to the location in Woodbury currently. It's also worth noting that the trash enclosure will use similar materials as the found on the building. As previously mentioned, this building is on Kohl's property. The Kohl's already got approvals for landscaping, so they're actually complementing and adding on to what's currently on site. Most of the time, we're seeing preliminary plats where you're subdividing the property away. Then you are triggered to plant your own landscaping, but since this is the overall part of the overall Kohl's site, they're just adding to it. So they're proposing to add 8 overstory trees, 95 shrubs, and 255 perennials on site. The perennials are on the base of the building, requiring the ordinance requirement for base plantings. The proposed utilities will connect to existing services in the parking lot or in the surrounding area. Stormwater will be managed by storm sewer and drainage swales on site as well. And that completes my presentation, and if you have any questions, I am here to answer.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Commissioner
I have a
Fisher?
question. So the drive-through, is that just for the ATM, or do they have drive-through teller services too?
That is just for the ATM, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions for staff? All right, thank you. This time, if the applicant would like to approach and provide any additional comment? Seeing none. All right. This time I'll open up public hearing on the application. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the application, please step to the podium. Seeing none, we'll close public hearing. Any further questions or comments by commission? Otherwise, I'd look for a motion.
A motion to approve the site plan and the CUP as stipulated in the staff report.
All right, I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Rasmussen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Knable. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Item 6.4 is Trellis Senior Apartments, case SP 2023-012 and ZA 2023-012, with Mike Rosla presenting.
The anticipation. There we go. All right, I'm back. A little intermission there. All right. Trellis Companies has submitted an application for site plan review and plan unit development for a 52-unit apartment building located at 7601 79th Street. The subject parcel is 0.9 acres in size. It's a little unique as the lot was actually created in 1979. It's been vacant since then, has had seen numerous development proposals on the site. So tonight we're reviewing a 52-unit multifamily senior affordable project on the site. All right, the proposal is for 52 units again, it's senior affordable, but deeply affordable. When I say that, 36 of the proposed units are at 30% AMI. And with that said, 30% of the area average income or area median income is $26,000 and $26,100, excuse me. It's really, and so the rent for that for a studio, that's shown on the bottom of the screen there, would be $652 per month. For a 1-bedroom would be $699. This is something that's very unique to the community, as our comprehensive plan states as the goal for our community to add 330 30% AMI or units to the community. So this is really interesting item or proposal. Also, the applicant is proposing 16 units at 60% AMI. These are age-restricted units at 62 plus. There is two types of products. There are studio and one bedrooms. There's various types of the one bedrooms are shown on the screen. Some of the amenities on site include on-site management, on-site resident service coordination, a craft room with programming, storage lockers, mailroom. Amenities inside the units themselves are luxury vinyl plank flooring, accessibility units, dishwashers, and some of the units on the first floor facing Hemingway will have patio access as well. As previously stated, the comprehensive plan does outline a lot of the goals for the community, and affordable housing is one of the major items in there, as discussed in there. The proposed development fulfills the 2040 comprehensive plan as it provides deeply affordable housing option for seniors, which is really important to the community, especially at this 30% AMI, as previously discussed. There's also many other goals that we're providing staff reports that this proposed project does fulfill for the comprehensive plan. So as we get into the comprehensive plan, as planning commissioners know, it guides our density in the community and projects. The subject property is zoned and guided mixed use, which allows for 40 units per acre. However, the site is just under an acre. It's at 0.9 acres, which allows for 36 units per acre. However, the comprehensive plan and city code does allow, provide council the tools and the authority to increase density above the recommended density on the site. So one of those tools is the city code section 11.4-1, which is a density bonus. This city code states that 10 to 15% of the total units set aside for a 30% AMI may receive a density bonus of 15 to 20%. As previously stated, 69% of the units in this facility are set aside for 30% AMI, which staff is recommending the 20% total, the maximum you can provide for this, or 7 units in this case. Another tool that the city council can use is a density transfer. As previously mentioned, the density transfer is a tool that can be used through the PUD process. It's a common practice for multifamily projects, a method to increase density within a certain portion of a project area. As previously mentioned, this development is part of the Hinton Heights subdivision that was approved in 1979. The northern part that's kind of in the light brown on the screen here was replatted with the development to the north, the Bright Keys and Park Grove Estates development. However, the part down here remained. Sorry, that sounds terrible. As part of that, what we can do then is transfer units from an area that's dedicated to open space to somewhere else on the property. So in this case here, the area in green here, Outlot A, is approximately 0.9 acres and can be used for up to 36 units. Staff is proposing the transfer, and the applicant is proposing to transfer 9 units to the subject site to make for a total of 52 units as requested by the applicant. Planning considerations for this project: the proposed building meets all building and height setbacks. Meets all the setbacks. The impervious surface on site ordinance requires a maximum of 70%. The applicant's at 69.9%. We're right there. And the proposed height is 47 feet. Maximum by ordinance is 50. And then the parking for the site. This is a little unique for these kind of uses here, because the code was written in a way for independent senior living, which code requires 1.5 stalls per unit. In most independent living facilities, the residents have their own cars, if not one, maybe 2. That is not the case with affordable projects. Generally, they use other, some may have vehicles, some may not. Some residents may rely on other transportation options within the community, like DARTs or Metro Transit or Metro Mobility. So the property owner is proposing, or the applicant is proposing 43 stalls, and has numerous experience with other projects, as they own a lot of other senior projects in the metropolitan area. As you can see on the table on the screen here, the parking counts are very similar to other projects in other communities. So they're proposing 43. Another positive for the site that there is on-street parking allowed on Hemingway and 79 for those bigger times. There's more visitors potentially on site, so there is some on-site street parking provided. Then I was going to walk through the site plan here a little bit too. As previously mentioned in the previous case, there is a request for PUD flexibility for encroachment into the parking lot front yard setback. The applicant's requesting 12 feet. Here, this should be 20. So, but this is not uncommon here. Grove 80, which is over here, has setback 8.5 feet. So it's common to encroach a little bit onto that for these kind of uses here, as long as they're not in the impacting traffic or any kind of turn lanes like that. That's part of the project. It's also worth knowing that the site does meet lighting ordinance standards as well. Also, I want to point out two other things here before I switch. The trash access is actually kept internal to the site. The applicant will bring out the trash on pickup days and park it here. That's why you can kind of see this miscolored pavement here on the plan. This is concrete instead of actual asphalt, so it will not get damaged as part of the trash pickups. Also, the applicant will be constructing a sidewalk along Hemingway as highlighted in red on the screen. Currently, there is none there. So they'll be expanding that along the roadway. Excuse me. Again, for multifamily buildings, 65% of the building has to be class 1 materials, brick, glass, or stone. The applicant is proposing 46%, which is not precedent setting in the area, as Grove 80 has 42%. So the applicant is proposing 24% stone, 22% glass. It's very similar to Grove 80 right across the street, 23 and 19, 42 overall. A little different though, they are using more fiber cement, which is class 3 material, which is okay. Grove 80 uses only 38.75, but they have other materials on site as well. So once again though, as the conversations have gone on with the applicant, their previous workshops of council and staff, the intent was to match or complement architecture in the area. And that's what they did. They kind of took nodes from everything in the surrounding area on the architectural features of the building. As you can see here on the front elevation of the building, you can see the patio walkouts for these units here, which will activate the pedestrian theming of the area. Just want to point that out as well. Landscaping, ordinance requires 11 overstory trees, 10 conifers, and 23 shrubs. The applicant's proposing 11 overstory, 10 conifers, and 39 shrubs. Also worth knowing that there is a number of perennials and base plantings. Don't have on a table here, approximately, I think there's about 50 of them. You can see them on the screen, or all these planting areas here along the building. It's also worth noting that at the neighborhood meeting, the applicant did discuss potentially adding additional landscaping on the east side of the parking lot to assist in headlights going into the adjacent parking lot. And that's something the applicant is working with that property owner to address. Stormwater will be managed via underground infiltration chambers. Also, the proposed utilities will be connected to existing services, so they're already stubbed in the street. With that, I also want to state before I get done here, we did have a neighborhood meeting on June 13th, 2023. We did have one resident and one commercial property owner in attendance. The resident did own a property to the north in the townhome development. They had a number of questions about the project and site impacts at that time onto their property, about property values, number of children use that corner for bus pickup, and some screening options. The applicant has been in contact with them about addressing some of their concerns and see if there's options to mitigate those. In addition, and same with the commercial property owner to the east, had concerns about some of the headlights shining into the property, noise and construction concerns. So the applicant's actively working with those and has spoken with them since the neighborhood meeting to address those concerns. With that, the applicant is on hand, and that completes my presentation.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff? Thanks, Mike. At this time, if the applicant would like to add anything additional?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is Dan Walsh. I work for the developer and sponsor Trellis. I'll give the Address of the site, 7601 79th Street. Trellis is located in the city of Minneapolis. So quick introduction to my organization. We're a nonprofit developer of affordable multifamily housing. We've been in business for approximately nearly 30 years. We've got more than 4,000 units in 51 properties, primarily in the Twin Cities metropolitan area, some scattered throughout Minnesota. We are one of the largest nonprofit owners and developers of affordable housing in Minnesota. We also own our own management company, which will have a full-time presence at this proposed development if you approve it. And I think staff, I'll just quickly add, because staff, I think, did a great presentation. This is affordable senior housing, and like staff outlined, 36 of the units are for seniors that really are just living on Social Security. The $26,000, $26,000 a year is roughly the Social Security benefit that many seniors around the poverty line get. So our primary goal, and our architect is here tonight too, if you have any specific design-related questions, our primary goal really was fitting in with the surroundings and creating a building that the city would be proud of. We took into a lot of the context and considerations like staff went over. And I also just want to touch on the less than 1 unit per parking stall. It is something, so we're the long-term owner of the property. We never intend to sell our properties. So we're a long-term neighbor, long-term owner. We take parking really seriously as an owner because we want to make sure that we can lease the units and provide good homes for people. And this population in particular, we have a number of developments like them. They really don't, as Steph said, what our management company asks me when I present them a new project is, how's Metro Mobility going to access the site? What's the pickup and drop off? Is there a place to sit that's out of the weather? It really is all about that, that type of transportation more than cars. So we do think the number of stalls are right size for the site. There's the library there. For the location, there are a lot of amenities around the site that we think will be great for our residents to access. But I did want to touch on that, and that was it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
I have one.
Commissioner Fisher?
So in addition to the rents, will you have a monthly HOA fee too? And what will that all cover?
I don't believe that there is an HOA. I don't believe that we're part of an HOA.
Okay,
site.
so the rent would be the only,
Oh, correct. Yep.
because I know
Yeah.
sometimes you get, yeah, this is affordable, but then you
Yeah.
get charged a $600 a month HOA fee.
Correct.
And then
Correct. No
no
HOA
longer,
fee.
so.
Yeah, no HOA fee. We're not charging for parking. Actually, 36 of the units that are restricted to the extremely low-income folks have project-based rent assistance attached to them. So the residents will actually only pay 30% of their income. So if they have no income, they won't pay rent. So, yeah, it's a good question.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll open public hearing on the application. Anyone wishing to speak for or against the application can approach the podium. Seeing none, we'll close open hearing, public hearing on the application. Any further discussion or questions from commission? Commissioner Rasmussen.
I'm just a little bit concerned with the parking. We're asking for such a big, 35 stalls, less than what's typically recommended. And then, wintertime, snow builds up, you might lose 20% of those. you know, we don't know who's gonna be living in these places and if they have cars or not, and what happens if the parking does become a problem. Are they trying to park in the library or neighboring properties? I do like the application and the project, but that's my one comment.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? I guess, Mike, that Commissioner Rasmussen's question or comment brought up a good point for me. Do we have plans? I know sometimes on applications, we kind of have plans as to where snow removal is going to be or where snow storage on site is going to be, especially considering if we're going to agree to do so little parking compared to code. Do we know where that's going to happen?
I believe the applicant did have that, Chair and Commission, I believe the applicant did address that on part of their submittal package. I don't want to speak out of turn. If the applicant addressed that, or,
I think the architect can talk about where it'll go on site. We'll both answer.
And if you just want to state your name and your work address.
I'm Brian Paterick, Cost Wilson Architects, 1301 American Boulevard East, Bloomington.
All right.
We would never, as a business practice, store it over parking stalls. We, in extraordinary snow years, have trucked snow off-site. We actually have our own snow removal division of our property management company. So it is something that we do in-house and take very seriously for those extraordinary snow years that do happen. It's a good question.
Yeah, when we were working on the site layout with Civil Site Group is the civil engineer, and we were talking about the trellises on site management was a great option for snow removal, but we would the options in the south area. I don't know if I can point. The south below the parking here, jumping into that landscaping area, as well as the west or east side of the property, into that landscape area over there.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments from commission?
I'll just add, Chair and Commission, that on page C2 of the submitted plans states exactly what the applicant just said, that in the events, it shall be stored on site, but when in events that it cannot be stored on site, it should be hauled off site.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further comments from commission, I'd look for a motion.
Motion to approve, subject to the stipulations in the staff report.
I have a motion for Commissioner Britton. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second from Commissioner Rasmussen. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. Item 7 tonight is approval of the Planning Commission minutes of April 24th, 2023. Unless there are any additions or corrections, I'd look for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Fisher. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Rasmussen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. 8 is reports. 8.1 is recap of May and June city council meetings from Emily Schmitz.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I was all prepared as we did not have a May Planning Commission meeting. However, that means that we didn't recap May council meetings. So I'm going to start in June and we're going to work a little bit backwards here this evening. So as mentioned, given we didn't have a May Planning Commission meeting, June items were a bit light to report back on. However, 2 items on the June 7th meeting One, I just wanted to touch on, staff worked closely with the passing of the builder of Mark Elliott Homes. We worked closely with some of those folks in the Parkview Point development. I thought it's important for you guys to be kind of aware of how we navigated that. So we hold an escrow as a part of the building permitting process at the beginning of that when we do issue that. And that is a security to ensure that those lots are completed on the exterior, sod, boulevard, tree, and ensuring the grading is complete. A lot of these folks were kind of left without those items completed and no one to work with to get those items taken care of. So as a city and ultimately city council approved returning those escrows directly to these property owners who still had some items to complete: sod, landscaping, boulevard tree, grading as-bills, things of that nature. So we were able to help those folks who might have already paid for those items, but they weren't being completed, to be able to support getting those items completed. So on that meeting, council did approve for us to do that, so we are working through helping out those homeowners the best that we can. And the second item on that agenda was the Mississippi Landing final plat, conservation easement memorandum of understanding. So you might recall, we are working with a property owner. We're also working with Washington County and some funding opportunities, which actually the county approved just last week as well, to acquire property along the Mississippi River. That was a part of the Mississippi Dunes Golf Course. Obviously, a development hasn't moved forward at this time. However, we've continued to work with that property owner, as well as the county as a funding partner, to acquire that acreage ahead of a development. So we've ensured that we have an agreement with that property owner, understanding that that dedication came kind of ahead of development. But wonderful opportunity, and really looking forward to watching that park continue to provide an opportunity for folks to access the Mississippi River right here in Cottage Grove. So I am going to ad-lib here back to the May council meetings. But I don't see anything huge. So Commissioner, Mr. Chair and Commissioner, I'm going to leave it at the June meetings. However, if you have any questions or clarification, Councilmember Kambata is also here as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Kambata.
Thank you. I just want to say great work, guys. I know what you guys do up there is not always easy. And as you can see here from the various kinds of applications that we had before us today, you know, there's a lot to consider, and I know that on council, we appreciate your guys' guidance. So with that, I'll take questions if you guys have any questions for me.
Thank you. Any questions for the council member? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
8.2 was response to planning commission inquiries. I know we had a couple inquiries last time, but I don't know we needed any follow-up. Okay. 8.3, planning commission requests. Any requests? Seeing none. We'll move on to item 9, which is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn from Commissioner Rasmussen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Britton. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0. We are adjourned.